So here we go. We're going to make backgrounds today, and we're going to use Aqua watercolor markers by Nuvo. The technique is called Batik technique. Here's one of the markers, and these are just perfect for this technique. I'm using markers from 3 different sets because I have a lot of them, and I just chose colors that went well together. We're going to also use one of my stamp sets that I designed for Sparkle and Sprinkle, and it's called My Wild Rose. This is my signature rose. When I first started drawing in this style, this is the very first image that I drew and colored, and it's been colored with alcohol markers. We're only going to use one tiny stamp from this set, and it is the little leaf stamp. This is a rose leaf, very tiny, and perfect for making an interesting background with this technique. Now, instead of using wax, we're using Nuvo masking fluid. I've used masking fluid to mask on paper, and I wondered if I could use it on a stamp. Turns out I can. So, to put it on this stamp, we want to protect the stamp from having it really stick to the stamp, because we want to use the stamp over and over again with different colors. So taking some of our coconut soap with a little water, of course, water helps, I'm going to make a protective layer directly on the stamp. Soap it up, get it good and sudsy. You can actually see the soap covering that stamp. It's just enough to keep it from being coated by sticky masking fluid. So using the masking fluid, we're going to make ourselves a little sort of ink pad right on the glass mat. And I like to use one of the squares, although I am going to kind of smear it out of that square using a palette knife. We're going to make it into kind of like a stamp pad. So we're just going to smear it smooth. And the masking fluid will rub right off of that palette knife, although I did stick it in some water because I'm going to want to use it again. Then you're going to stamp, just like it was a stamp pad. Straight down, straight up. Tap, tap, tap. And we're going to stamp all over our piece of watercolor paper in a random fashion. Turning the paper instead of the stamp, although once in a while I just can't help myself and I do twist my hand around. It's just safer for your project to turn the paper instead of the stamp. It's a good habit. So stamping, just like you're stamping with ink, all over in a planned random fashion. Then we'll clean the stamp off very easily, a little more soapy water, and then wipe it right off. I tended to get it a little carried away with the soapy water, which kind of got underneath my stamp and separated it from the block, but no problem. Just put it back on there for next time. That little X is just to help me know where to keep my project, although you can see I'm not really keeping my project where I'm supposed to. Sorry about that. There we go. And please excuse my fingers, they are just inky. I've been playing a lot, so my hands rarely look perfect. Now we'll let this dry, and it doesn't take long. So the colors are so brilliant with these aqua pens. Starting with the lightest color that I chose, I'm going to coat the entire piece of watercolor paper by squeezing the ink out of the marker. And you can see how much color comes out of that watercolor pen. It is just amazing and beautiful, brilliant, even coating of color. Don't even have to worry about brush marks. It's just flowing right out of that Aqua Flow pen. Now we'll let this dry, and you can help it along with your heat tool if you like, but not too close. Now that it's dry, we'll move on to the next layer. It's doing the same thing. A new puddle, because the old one there is already starting to dry and becomes very tacky and gluey, and we don't want to try to stamp with that. Just leave it there and we'll rub it away later. So we're doing the same technique. Here we go again. Soaping up the stamp. And now we'll use a same technique. Stamp it all over in another random planned pattern in between the other images. I have other cards that I'll show you at the end of this video where I use bigger stamps and do actually overlap them. But for this technique right here, this background, we're not overlapping. So it's really a personal choice. So here I go again, stamping randomly, turning the paper. Masking fluid is an amazing thing. Dries pretty quickly, and now we're ready to apply our next layer of color. This is a red Aqua Flow pen, apple red. And the color is just amazing with these pens. You squeeze the color out. And it's just so easy. Coating it evenly. And the candy, well, not candy, apple red is our middle tone. Then we're going to put one more darker layer over this. Okay, so look at that. Look how pretty that is. You can already see some of the yellow leaves. So I've already done a third layer.
Same thing.
Just removing that dry masking fluid.
Same thing.
And here you'll see there's another layer of color. So you can see some of those red leaves peeking out at you. I heat set it. So I'm kind of cooling it off because I'm going to remove the masking fluid that's dried on here. And this is a fun part. Now, if you don't want to get your fingers all red, you can use the tool, our little square remover, sticky remover tool. But I prefer my fingers. I don't really care that I'm getting color on them. Yes, they'll be stained, but I can always, you know, wear that off as time goes by. It's just a sign of being an artist. Or a stamper. So here I'm removing it, and you can see all those leaf images popping out. It's kind of a fun thing to remove it. It's like you can't wait for that step. It's just a fun step. And of course I can easily wipe it all off my glass mat. Look at that. Batik. Just amazing. So here's the card, and the background in this one is a little more subtle. To get that kind of technique, just kind of use your second generation stamping and you won't get such a brilliant, perfect image. And yes, my fingers are very red. So now we're going to stamp again, but this time we're going to use embossing powder. A really pretty color that goes along with this. Just looks like it's made for this. Okay, we're done with the masking fluid. Now we're going to move on to Versamark. And that's leaf again. Kind of looks like lips. So we'll just stamp randomly. Oh. My stamp doesn't want to seem to stick, so what I'm going to do is just heat up my stamp a little bit with my heat tool. And by doing this, it will stick to the block quite easily. There we go. Stamping randomly, not worrying about the spaces. I'm going all over the entire thing. And now for the embossing powder. Christmas fire. Oh, so pretty. Perfect, perfect for this color combination. And we don't have to worry about how much, because we're going to put all the extra back into the little bottle anyway. So we dump it on there, tap it off. And I'm not even really worried about any sticking to the background because it'll just add to the prettiness, the brilliance of the background. And yes, you do need to heat emboss it. Now for the frame around our background, I use some Tear-ific tape in 1/4 inch, removing the backing paper. And I'm going to dump some Cloud 9 sparkly glitter. Love this Cloud 9. It looks like clouds. Look at that. Dump that all over. And I'm going to burnish it in because we're using tape, so you can burnish it with your finger, which feels really great. It's just, you know, all of the tactile experiences we have with stamping and creating. It's like being a little kid, you know, like just making a mess and having fun. I'm going to clean that up and put that back into the little bottle. Okay, clean that mess with my glitter brush. I've got my coffee filter tucked underneath the edge of my glass mat here so that I can just swipe it all right back into that coffee filter and then funnel it back into the bottle. Coffee filters and a glass mat, great combination. So we're done with that for a minute, but we will be adding more. So here's our frame, and you can see I got a little bit of ink on there, but we're going to put the image there. Just make sure after you get ink all over your fingers that you do a better job than I did, and wash your hands in between. Using red and white really helps. So that's where that's going to go. Next thing we need to do is prepare our frame and layer our sentiments. It's just going to make it a little bit thicker. 2 layers. It's enough because we're going to put glitter all over that as well. So here we go with this. I'm going to use not the tiny glue, but the middle size. Here I'm trying to make sure it's still working. And then I decided I don't want to use this one. I'm going to use the middle size one. When you try this, you got to really, be so exact. And it takes more time that way. We don't want it to stick to a coffee filter. Don't have a coffee filter underneath your glue. Unless you want to attach a coffee filter to your project. So here's where the light bulb went off over my head, and I realized I should use one that's bigger. It's so much easier. Well, looky there. All right, and it's so sticky. I'll tell you, these Nuvo glues are super sticky. Really great. So I'm coating the frame with the Nuvo glue, which is a 2-way glue, so it dries tacky, which is what you need with glitter. And I'm going to wipe off the glue so that my coffee filter doesn't stick to my glass mat. And then I'm going to dump the Cloud 9 all over the frame, which also has red on it because I didn't wash my hands. Shame on me. Okay, burnish it in, brush it off. Oh, what would I do without my glitter brush? And I've got a lot of brushes, but that brush is special. Now we're going to do the same thing, but first we have with our sentiment. But first we've got to attach them to each other. And another light went off here. This is funny. Oh my gosh! I'm so glad they make more than one size of Nuvo glue pen, and you can tell my Nuvo glue pen is well loved. So easy. Big glue pen all over. Wipe the glue off. And layer these 2 pieces And I like to start at the top of the letters and layer them. And because it's a wet glue, it gives you a little wiggle room so that you can move them around and get them exactly lined up. And this is a little tricky because these are small. But there we go. So they're stuck together, and now we're going to put some glitter on that. But as you can see here, I almost forgot to add, oh yeah, I'm cleaning my mat with a little bit of hand sanitizer. It really works well. And I've got another trick with hand sanitizer I can share with you. Hopefully I'll remember later in the video. Oops, forgot the glue on the surface. Well, well. I glued them together, but I didn't put any glue where I want to put the glitter. So there. Now, turn it over and just lay it in there and watch how pretty this is. Oh my word. So, so pretty. Very glittery. And that's going to go on the card as well. So here's the finished card. I got all the layers glued together. And as I attached the frame and the sentiment, I did lay a coffee filter over it when I rubbed those pieces down with my hands, just so that I wouldn't rub on the glitter or the sentiment frame, so that they were pressed down nicely. Now this card I made, and I used a different stamp set, and I'm going to give you a little secret again with the hand sanitizer. This is a piece of, oh, here's the stamp set. Yes, I used the honeycomb stamp in the background, and I stamped it all over each other. There's no random stamping here. It's all over. Now this butterfly is made out of mirrored paper, and you use a Q-tip with a little bit of hand sanitizer, rub it all over that butterfly, and it'll remove any glue that you might have gotten on it with your fingers or with the glue pen. Really works well. And I added a little wire to that one as well. Now this background hasn't been made into a card yet, and I'm amazed at this technique. These are koi fish from Koi Pond Friends stamp set, and they almost don't even look like fish. They're not as recognizable as the fish in the stamp. On the Aqua markers, just amazing. The flow of the color onto the watercolor paper is so even and saturated with color. It's just beautiful. I can't say enough about these Aqua pens when it comes to batik technique. The layers, I started with a pink on this one, and you can see a little bit of it peeking through. And then I used some silver embossing powder. Just beautiful. It's just so much fun. So try this technique with different color Aqua markers and different stamps and see what you come up with. If you like this video, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. This is Beverly Cole. Have fun.